It's that time. Your fix is here. College football is a year-round discussion with these two. Here's JC and Morgan. Mike Morgan of ESPN and JC Shurburtt of 24/7 Sports have you covered. Beginning right now.
And we welcome everybody. It is the show that is on campus 52 weeks out of the year. We welcome you to episode number 241 if you're scoring at home. And it's another special installment. JC is out today, one of our favorite guests for a number of years, sitting in the co-pilot chair. This is going to change your life, Tom Luginbill of ESPN. I don't know if you're prepared for how this changes a man. Your status in the community, your CUME rating on television, just your overall morale around you and your family and your neighborhood. This is a difference maker. We are kingmakers on this show, so no pressure. Welcome aboard.
Well, I appreciate you having me. I'm half expecting confetti to come down from my ceiling.
Not in the budget
balloons,
yet. Yeah.
Maybe some balloons. I love your background with the iconic commercial with me and Joe
Thank you
Green.
for picking that up.
Yeah, outstanding. It was one of the best of all time.
Yes.
And the best part about that is look at his pads.
Oh, yeah.
How did any of these guys even survive?
I know, man. Remember the big thick neck rolls in the back?
Oh, yeah, the suspension helmets were all it was just like this stretchy canvas.
Oh, my goodness.
On the inside.
I don't know how people ran. I mean, the big thigh pads back in the day.
Oh, man. Well, I'll tell you this. I mean, I'm 50 and probably well till maybe my second year in college, everybody was still wearing the big, thick thigh pads and the hip pads and the butt pad that you looped your belt through. Remember that?
Right.
And then everything, you wanted everything to be tight, but nothing was made tight. So like it just, everything was loose. The sleeves on the jersey were massive. I mean, it's what a different world we're living in, man.
Different world, man. I mean, a guy that ran a 4.3 then should be able to run a 4.1 now, just with the less tonnage that you have to carry on your back. That's what I want.
I want one thing though. I want one thing, Mike. I want people to come back with the single bar down the middle Gary Fensick face mask.
Oh, nice.
And
Number
you know
45?
who needs to wear it? Cooper DeJean needs to wear it.
Yes. That'd be a good candidate.
He's got to wear it.
Fensick was an Ivy Leaguer. I always have to remind myself, because you and I are close to the same in age. We have a lot of youngsters now. I say youngsters. It makes me sound older than I am, but like 20-something, 30-something. Yeah. and I just assume like that people were like us. I consider, I joke about this all the time, but I kind of mean it. I'm a football nerd. And that, like, when I was a kid, it was cool to know what happened before you were around. So I could not get enough of, like, NFL films, for example. I wasn't watching cartoons when I went home. I was watching NFL films, and I was learning about Otto Graham of the Browns. I was
Sonny Jurgensen.
Yeah, the Big Blue Oilers with Earl Campbell. Like, I wasn't old enough to see all this necessarily, but I couldn't get enough. And now with and we're on YouTube. I know our biggest audience is on Spotify and iTunes, and I always just say, for me, I'm more of a visual guy. Like, put on YouTube, even if you don't want to see our smiling faces. YouTube has opened the door where you can be a 20-something and really still learn and gain the knowledge of the history of the sport that we love, that is football. You can become a savant of sorts. It's not going to be the same of being there and experiencing it. Like, I'll never know what it's like to see Jim Brown dominate a football game. But right. I was old enough as a kid to see Walter Payton, and I can go back. And when I put on the TV now, I subscribe to YouTube TV. I've got a Samsung TV, which automatically defaults to the Family Ties channel, which is amazing because it's such a good show. It still holds up today. Tom Hanks was the celebrity guest. The last episode I saw, he played the father's brother who was involved in embezzlement and wanted by the FBI for $4.5 million of fraud. Alex P. Keaton will go down as one of the best TV characters of all time. And bless her heart, Tina Yothers just cannot act worth anything. They put her on this show, and they're like, we got to give her some lines because we're paying her. And it's painful to watch. But I digress. But when I go to the YouTube TV part, it nowadays everything is spying on us, right? The computers, the phones, they know everything that we're doing, everything we're saying, and they know our tendencies. So they pop up things that they know we're going to be interested in. It'll just do random NFL and college games from the 80s or the 70s or the early 90s. And I'm like, how am I not going to watch this? You just took 3 hours out of my day because I can't pass this up. I've got to go ahead and watch Roger Staubach play in a 1978 playoff game against the Rams with Fred Dreyer and Vince Ferragamo. I'm in.
Fred, with Hunter? With Hunter?
Yes, Hunter was on the D-line.
I know he was.
Another night reference, right?
I've actually met him several times.
Have you really?
He would come back to San Diego State games. My dad was the head coach there.
Oh.
And he'd be on the sideline. And Hunter was 89 to 94. So Hunter was in a pretty good run there. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, he was on a heater.
You say that about YouTube or 20-somethings or 30-somethings. That's all my son has done for the last 5 years. When I ask him, what are you doing? Watching YouTube. Well, what are you watching? I'm watching highlight videos of Lawrence Taylor.
Yes.
Or, I'm watching. One day he's like, hey, Dad, did you know that your first game at Georgia Tech against Arizona is on YouTube? I'm like, it probably is. Yeah.
Right.
And so they go back and they gather you're right. Our only way of doing that was Football Follies or NFL Films.
That's right.
That was our only way of doing it. And I knew because I'd grown up in it, I knew who guys were. I knew, you were talking about. I mean, not so much having to go back as far as the autograms of those people, but the Terry Bradshaws, right? Mm-hmm. The Fran Tarkentons, all those guys. But, and I got to share this with you because to this day, it's still one of the treats of my lifetime. And I'm so fortunate I was mature enough at this age to really look to my left, look to my right, and take it all in. I was a ball boy for the San Diego Chargers from 1991 to 1993.
Cool.
Okay. So you got to understand at that time who was in the league and at what positions. So you're talking about Elway, Marino, Montana. Okay. Then you're talking about, you mentioned Walter Payton, Eric Dickerson. I could run down the receivers were ridiculous across the league, right?
Yeah.
And I would remember just being a kid. I remember Howie Long standing on the sideline because I would do one half on the Chargers sideline and the other half on the opposing sideline, right?
Wow.
And to see these guys and to see Junior Seau in his prime, that stuff was. I'll never forget any of it.
Oh.
It was so unbelievable, right? So I was like you, I was dialed into all of that stuff, and I'm actually glad that kids and football players and kids that are getting into football have access to finding out about who are these guys? Who are these guys? I hear all about them, everybody sits there and talks about Tom Brady being the greatest of all time. Well, up until a couple of years ago, it was Joe Montana.
Right.
For a long time. Right?
Oh, yeah.
A long time.
For
so
25 years. He was.
Probably, yeah.
You weren't going to take him off the GOAT list.
No. And so, I got stuff in my office all over. There's Joe there, Joe there, Joe there. I mean, it's like, that was my guy, right?
That
so
was
then
the guy.
He goes to San Francisco, and he's in San Francisco in '94, and my first year at Georgia Tech, and they're playing a playoff game, or they're playing the Falcons or something like that, and they practice at Tech, right? Something like that. So I got to see him in person in a Kansas City uniform.
Awesome. I mean, that's the other thing. Like, I was watching, there's a Joe Montana doc on.
It's awesome. It's on Peacock.
Is it Apple or Hulu? I can't remember.
Peacock.
It's fantastic.
It's Peacock. It's fantastic.
Peacock. That's right. Peacock of all things.
It is so good.
So well done. I watched that. I think the next day I was hosting a show in Atlanta and working with a guy named Chuck Oliver, who's kind of like, he's one of us. You know, Chuck. Yeah.
Sure.
And he's a little bit older, so he's got even more reference points, but he's just as big of a nerd. Nobody talks more college football in Atlanta, which can lean pro, even though I consider it the mecca for college football fans. And I went in there and I'm like, he's like, what do you want to talk about, Mike? I said, Chuck, I can do a half hour on this Joe Montana doc I just watched. He's like, well, I'm in on that. You know that, brother. I'm like, well, good, because I thought I knew everything about Joe Montana, because that's our generation. We grew up watching him. And then I learned certain things about him that were going back to his days at Notre Dame that were fascinating. And I forgot about, it wasn't all a bed of roses. He did have a lot of injuries. That 81 championship, which was like the first Super Bowl I was old enough to really comprehend. The next year, they didn't even make the playoffs. Yeah. 82 was a complete dud. And it had the same group of players. It's not like they lost somebody to free agent. There was no free agency.
There was no free agency. Yeah.
They just had a complete dud. So I learned a ton about Montana on watching that doc, and I'm like, yeah. And then, like, I grew up. We moved to South Florida when I was 10, and I'm going to the Orange Bowl on a regular basis and watching Dan Marino.
Yeah.
And to this day, I don't care he didn't win a Super Bowl. I've never seen a better arm. I never will see a better arm.
You didn't see Jeff George in person.
Not in person, but I have said he's got the prettiest spiral I've ever seen. Him and Warren Moon.
I've never seen, and again, I got to see all those guys in person. The two pure strongest arms, just pure velocity and power, was Elway and Jeff George. Just velocity and power.
Right.
Where Marino was so unique is, yes, he had a strong arm, but his ability to get the ball out of his hand,
yes,
so quickly, like it's a clinic video. Like it's literally a clinic video, which is what made. And the thing is, think about it, he had zero athleticism, so he had no choice. Right. Like that ball got to get out.
He had zero athleticism, and yet he took fewer sacks than most of the athletic guys.
Absolutely.
That's the unsung statistic about a lot of these running quarterbacks, is that they get sacked more than the guy that doesn't run a lot, because the guy that doesn't run a lot, his timing, pocket presence, pocket mobility, getting it out quickly, that's what Marino did. I remember this was like, again, my first next level nerdum. Watching Marino, not being confined to a TV. Now we have an all 22 that we can go to, right? Where the analysts can break down the whole thing. The technology is but back then on TV, you didn't have that. So you were at the mercy of what you saw on your little 4x3 set, non-high def.
Yeah.
And you saw the ball, and then, okay, take camera 3, and then you'd see Mark Duper or Mark Clayton catch it. But when you went to the stadium, and you're sitting there in like row 30, section B, seat 12, you'd watch Marino throw the ball, and you're like, well, that's a terrible throw. That's going to be 5 yards outside. No, the receiver hadn't made his break yet. Yeah. He'd already thrown the ball anticipating where the receiver was going to. So when the receiver made his break and turns around, poof, there's the ball right on his shoulder pads. And I'd never seen another quarterback be able to do it as well as Marino did. So,
Yeah.
I don't know how we even got. I think Joe Green started. I'm blaming you, Joe. You started this whole thing going down memory lane.
See this?
Oh no, is that autographed or is that just the picture?
That's a 1981 signed black and white Joe Montana picture. Look at the shoes. Look at the face mask.
Yeah.
Right. So I was a little kid. 1981. I was born in '74.
So that's before he won his first Super Bowl.
Yes. So to Tommy, best wishes, Joe Montana.
Oh my goodness.
How about that?
Now you're just showing off.
Converse shoes with the flaps. Remember the
with
flaps?
the flap, the big star. Yeah, but again, for those of you not watching on YouTube, check it out. Luginbill's man cave is like he's coming up with autographed pictures of Hall of Famers.
Hey.
I interviewed a drunk Lawrence Taylor a few months ago. Do I get anything for that? I'm not kidding.
The problem is nobody be surprised about that.
Well, I mean, I'm sitting there. It's me and Chuck Oliver doing an Atlanta show. We're at a golf tournament doing a remote, and they're like, "We got Lawrence Taylor on." The producer will just tell you these things, and I'm like,
"Yeah,
LT's coming on." Well, LT just played 18 holes, and there's a lot of drinking going on all 18 of those holes, and there's about 4 F-bombs dropped in the first 3 minutes. I'm just like,
awesome.
This is I grew up watching this dude as like a little kid. Like, I've never seen a better badass on the defensive side.
Have you ever seen him in person?
We interviewed him in person.
Oh, I thought he was like on a
no
type situation. You were in the studio.
Luke, hey, I'll show you the picture. I don't have it.
How small he is?
How small he is? Well, compared to, he's not like big like today's guys.
Dude, he played at like 225.
Yeah.
People don't realize that.
But still scary as hell.
That's what made it even better.
Yeah. But no, he's literally 3 feet from me, and he's got that look in his eyes. And I asked one question that he didn't particularly like. I can't remember what. It was pretty innocuous, but he just kind of looked at me. And I thought, okay, who's my backup?
Yeah, right.
Who in this room? And I know I can't outrun him. LT still to this day could probably run like a 4.5.
He was bed run a 4.5.
Yeah, exactly, man. But no, he still looks just terrorizing, and that's when when you're up close to like people that you watched as a kid, it's beyond surreal. It really. I've interviewed Montana at the Super Bowl. That was beyond surreal. And he's like actually a super nice guy. Even he's got every right to be an egotistical a-hole, and he's not.
Right. He's not. He kind of is unassuming in a way. And if you watch the documentary, you'll really get this sense like I don't want to say he's aloof, but I don't think he's quite as aware of what his accomplishments are as everybody else around him is.
Right.
He's got to be deep down, but it's like, it's crazy.
He acts like he had a career of like a Gary Danielson, like just a journeyman, Sorry, Gary. But he acts like you carried him. I just carried him. Yeah. But without Gary's arrogant on air, which rubs a lot of people the wrong way. I actually think Gary does a good job, but I know I'm in the minority. But he acts like he was just a journey. Maybe let me throw out Gary. He acts like he's Eric Hipple. I'll go with another Detroit.
Eric Hipple.
Right?
Detroit Lion?
I'm going Detroit. He acts like he's Lynn Dickey of the Green Bay Packers. Like he just had a pedestrian career. He doesn't know any better that he was like the GOAT for 25 years. I go on and on and on, Lugs. Pick a team and I'll. I know. Jay Schrader, Redskins. Yeah. One of the few Joe Gibbs quarterbacks that didn't win a Super Bowl. Who's that?
True. John Freeze.
Oh, now you're really going. You're going. Mike Pagel? Come on.
Hey, I grew up with Mike Pagel.
Of course you did. It's the 6 degrees of Tom Luginbill.
My dad was the defensive coordinator at Arizona State on those teams.
Oh, my goodness. I just remember him as a Colt.
Yeah.
I remember, Gary Hogaboom, another Colt.
Gary Hogaboom.
Yeah. We can go on and on and on. We can do this for hours. Hey, Sipe had a run now under Retigliano.
Yeah, he did.
They were one of those teams that they were just that close.
And who did he play for in college?
Sipe?
Yep.
Ooh, that's a good one. I don't remember.
Don Coryell.
At?
San Diego State.
Sipe was a San Diego State guy. Did not know that. That's
Along
strong.
With Hunter.
That
Along with Hunter and Carl Weathers, right?
I gave tribute to Carl Weathers. I had a picture of him in my background of him playing ball.
There you go. He's a good player.
Yeah. Oh, that's good stuff. Yeah, I mean, I remember when we had you on a few months ago, I made the mistake of not mentioning your love of the West Coast guys, because obviously you spent a lot of time out there. But, and then to see what's happened to the Pack now, it's got to tug at your heartstrings a little bit, right?
I mean, when I was, let's just say, I wasn't even born yet. My dad coached at Arizona State twice. So in 71 and 72, they were in the Pac-8. The Pac-10 hadn't been formed yet. Right? And so then it becomes the Pac-10, which is kind of what I had grown up in. And then in those days, you had, before the Mountain West became the Mountain West, it was the WAC. So that was, and this is Boise was an FCS school at this time. Mm-hmm. Right? They weren't even on that same level. So you had the old WAC, you had San Diego State, Hawaii, New Mexico, Fresno State, those teams that Trent Dilfer was on.
Right.
And then you had the Pac-10, and those teams, when you think about Jason Sehorn, Willie McGinnis were on those FC teams. You could go on and on and on, but yeah, it's sad not just what happened to the Pac, what's happened to football in general on the West Coast.
Yeah.
And it's a shame, but
the demise.
Ever-changing time.
No, I know, and we'll get into some of that. The other thing that got me thinking, and then we need to take a break, and we need to get to the Phil 5, ordinarily the JC 5, some of the top topics of the day in college football. But I am curious, because the NFL draft wasn't that long ago. Speaking of great documentaries, the '83 draft that ESPN did, the 30 for 30 is spectacular, and that had Marino and Elway and Blackledge and Tony Eason, but the NFL draft just came and went, and as we've talked about ad nauseum, the college game now is more and more of a reflection of the NFL game. Everything that the college game is doing is leaning toward the NFL game, right? Whether you like it or not, we have free
agents. You mean the other way around? You're saying that the NFL is taking on the college game.
Well, I think I mean both. I think not so much on the field. The college game, although we now added a 2-minute warning, some of the rules are starting to reflect the NFL, and now we have basically free agency, right? I mean, I think in a lot of ways, and we're finding ways to make the college game relevant 12 months out of the year, which is great for people like you and me and doing a show like this. But and we're headed toward, it's almost like an NFC, AFC model. I hate to say that, but a lot of that is certainly true. So I think the college game in a lot of ways is also reflecting the NFL model.
But I misunderstood you. I thought you were referencing the style of play, whereas, not too long ago, you either ran the West Coast offense or the multiple pro style.
Right,
now,
right.
You look at Kansas City, and they look like a college team. You look at Philadelphia, they look like a college team. And I think the point to be made there is the quarterback position has changed so dramatically in terms of how kids are taught from, this tall.
Right.
That you can't just say, okay, well, we're going to run the West Coast offense, or we're going to run, because those guys don't play from under center. They're throwing bubble screens. It's RPO, it's all this and that. So you're trying to stick a square peg into a round hole, right? Mm-hmm. And so, you take somebody like Andy Reid, who literally was born out of the West Coast offense womb at BYU, right? And he goes and he works under Bill Walsh and Mike Holmgren, all these guys. And you look at him, they don't even resemble the West Coast offense anymore. Even he was we need to do what this number 15 can do. Right? Mm-hmm. And forget about the system. The system has to be about how were these guys brought up? How were they developed? What do they know? What do they not know? And how do we maximize the strengths and minimize the deficiencies? And that's what, to me, has changed so much in the NFL. But you're right. We are taking elements of the NFL game and the pro game, and we are applying it to college football. The problem is, if you actually took what we're doing in college football from a player perspective, the NFL would cease to exist.
Agreed. Totally agreed. The actual play calling years ago, you would never do what the Ravens do with Lamar Jackson in an NFL offense. Never.
Heck no.
But
and
now
they're still scared to death. You know, they hold their breath every time he takes off.
Without question. Now the jury is still out on whether they got to start winning some playoff games and doing something in the postseason before we talk like this is the new model that everybody should play like Lamar Jackson. Well,
right.
I don't know. It seems to me like the guys that are pretty consistently good throwing the football are still winning a lot of games. That much hasn't changed. They are more athletic. There's no question about it. Just about everybody can run some. But I don't think Lamar Jackson, who's kind of like Michael Vick 2.0 in a lot of ways. I think Vick had a better arm personally, just watching his career at Virginia
Tech. But they're very similar, yeah. Lamar's bigger.
Lamar's taller, right?
Yeah.
But Vick threw a pretty ball now.
Oh, yeah.
Michael Vick threw it. People forget how good. Go
YouTube it.
Yeah, exactly. Go YouTube like everything else.
Virginia Tech and Florida State.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. National championship game. But let me ask you just the quarterbacks, because we've watched them all in college. We've seen them all either in person doing some of their game. I was fortunate enough to see and call Jaden Daniels and Drake May. Never saw Williams in person. I think you did. Maybe you didn't. I can't remember. Yeah, you saw him in person. So when you watch those 6 guys go in the first round, what is Tom Luginbill saying? Because I know you have strong opinions on all of them.
So, number one, and I firmly believe this, if Michael Penix's age and injury history weren't what they are, he might have been the top overall pick in the draft, including.
So you're very high on him as well.
I think he is remarkably unique. I can see why the Falcons did what they did. They think they're going to be a pretty good football team, and they know that they may not be that high in the coming years to be able to take a quarterback again, right? If you look at the NFL and you look at the development of drafted quarterbacks that didn't play right away, who comes to mind? Steve McNair, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, and there's others, right? So you kind of realize this might be the best recipe here. I mean, there's proof in that pudding. So I think he's really good. I think he's the most innately accurate, best deep ball thrower in the class. He's the best deep ball thrower I've ever seen in college football, ever.
Wow.
Ever.
That's a strong take. Okay.
Because we're talking about classically low percentage throws. Further down the field you go with the ball, the lower the percentage is that you're going to complete it, right?
Right.
He makes deep posts and corners look like 5-yard hitch routes.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable, right? So I think he was special. My biggest question with Caleb is how he carries himself. And my worry is that he thinks it's going to be too easy. And I want to know what he does when things don't go his way, because he hasn't had a lot of that.
He'll get that in Chicago.
Yeah, he's going to get some of that in Chicago. So what does he do? Nobody's questioning the talent. Nobody's questioning the physical attributes. And by the way, until you see him in person, you don't have an appreciation for how strong his arm is. Holy smokes. He can flat rip it. And he can throw it standing on his head if he has to.
Mahomes is the comp there, right? They're hoping that he is Mahomes-like.
Correct. And when it comes to changing the arm angles, which in my opinion is more important now than it's ever been in the history of playing the position, because everything is so shotgun-based, and the defensive athletes that are coming after you, you have to be able to alter your release point. Things aren't going to be perfect. You can't just stand there and have this high over-the-top thing. You're going to have some nuance. He's got that. I think Bo Nix is a really good player. I thought he was a stretch for the first round.
Yeah.
Or if he was going to be a first round, maybe it's 26 to 32. So I thought that was a little bit high. I think it's unfair to claim that J.J. McCarthy can't do things that he was never asked to do.
Right.
And in fairness to him, the physical attributes are all there. He's a winner, played his best football when they had to have it, right? Like when they had to be their best on offense is when he actually played his best, which is, I think, what concerned people about Drake May. I had Drake May like 3 or 4 times. I had them a lot. And nobody can account for why that team tanked on the back half of the season for 2 straight years.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're playing that position at that quarterback spot and you've got the running back they had and some of the wideouts they had, it's almost inexplicable, right? So I do think there are some concerns there. And he's going to the most difficult spot. Like they should sit him. They got no dudes.
New England's awful.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And if you let Jacoby Brissett and those guys roll, I think the best potential total package of mindset, focus, professionalism, understanding of the environment, marriage between coach to player, scheme to player, maybe Jaden Daniels at Washington.
Yeah.
Because he's going with a coach that perfectly knows, and I'm talking about Cliff Kingsbury here, how to utilize what Jaden Daniels does, right? And that, to me, I go back to when in NFL Europe we had Kurt Warner. And it's an example of how many stars have to align. Okay, so Kurt Warner, the only team that would sign him with the Rams, sends him to NFL Europe. He comes back. He goes to camp. He's their 3. Itching to be the 2. Trent Green goes down. So you need that to happen. That's number 1. Then you walk into a huddle with Orlando Pace, Marshall Faulk, Oz Hakeem, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce. Could you have a better set of circumstances to have Kurt Warner thrown into the fire with Mike Martz and Dick Vermeil? You couldn't possibly ask for a better set of circumstances. But sometimes those are the things that need to happen for everything to materialize, right? And so if Washington can get a few more weapons around that guy, I just think the pieces of the puzzle could be there for Jaden to have a ton of success there.
Yeah, I see that, and I'll just put a bow on it by saying this for those wondering why so many teams during that first round were trading up and taking guys a little higher than expected, and you had the most quarterbacks ever taken in the top 12, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Luke, you and I know what the scouts know.
Yeah.
And that is that the class behind those guys, with all due respect to Carson Beck and Quinn Ewers, it ain't nearly as good or as deep as what we just saw.
Exactly right.
So you've got a situation, it's like the NBA draft upcoming. The Hawks have the number 1 pick. That's great. There's no Wembayama in this draft.
Yeah.
In the NFL, Beck would have been a mid-round, second-round guy this year. Ewers might not have even been that. Those are by far and away. And of course, your guy, Shedeur Sanders over there at Colorado. There's some people that like him. There's some people that don't. I think that's going to be the most polarizing player in the draft. But you don't have Jaden Daniels next year. You don't have Caleb Williams next year. And Penix for
McCarthy, all of them.
Yeah, it's just this was a historical draft that maybe someday we look at as in the neighborhood of 1983, or it could be what it was 4 years ago, which was a complete flop. I went back over the names. With the exception of Trevor Lawrence, every other quarterback that was taken in that draft in the first round, they've all been traded, dumped, benched. None of them have done anything. That includes Justin Fields. You know, they some of them have flashed at times. That includes Wilson of the Jets at a BYU. Like it was a complete bust. And Trevor Lawrence has been good, but he hasn't been next level generational good yet. Maybe he will be.
Not yet. Yeah. You know, and it just goes to show you how difficult it is to do. If you go to the last 20 years of every quarterback taken in the top 10, only 4 of them have been named to unanimously All-Pro.
Wow, that's a power number. That's
right.
You want another one?
Think about that. Yeah, give me another one.
This goes into, and I talked about this with JC, and you guys have a thorough background in evaluating high school recruiting as it pertains to college. 22 of the 32 kids taken in the first round were 4 or 5-star guys.
Of course they were. Yeah.
The only 2 that were below 3, Penix and Jared Verse was 0 stars before he went to Albany and then Florida State.
Sure. Yeah. And the thing is when when you consider that 7% of the high school population, 7% will play college football at any level. That's not just at FBS. That's including all levels, just 7%. Of that, 4% will have an opportunity to make an NFL roster. 4%.
Right.
Your chances of that 4% making a roster for more than 3 years is less than 1%. So that tells you why in the first round, the best coming out of high school, if they've developed and they've stayed out of the trouble, they've made the right choices, they're still going to be there at the top of the board. By the way, last thing here before I know you got to go to break. You know who benefited the most from the Michael Penix selection by Atlanta? It's the biggest fall in your lap opportunity of all time.
You got me. I'm stumped.
The Las Vegas Raiders getting Brock Bowers.
Oh yeah.
Are you kidding me?
I know.
Are you kidding me? Because they would have taken Penix.
Yeah, that's right.
They would have taken him.
That was the talk.
And they get Brock Bowers dropped in their lap.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's proverbial Pro Bowl tight end. That, to me, he was one of the tackles were the most drafted position in the first round, and they're generally the least risk guys. You know, if you got a 6'6", 325-pound left tackle with long arms and agility that dominates at the Power 5 level, generally they do pretty well at the next level. There's exceptions. Right. Some guys eat their way out of the league. But Brock Bowers, to me, was a surefire a guy. Like that's a lot.
Barring injury.
Yeah, of course.
He was arguably pound for pound the best player in the draft pool.
Freakish. Absolutely freakish. Young man out of Napa, California. To Athens. You got to love it. All right, we've got to take a timeout. We will get to the Phil 5. Happy birthday, producer Phil Molinax. It's Tom Luginbill. Yeah, man. It's Tom Luginbill sitting in here on another installment of JC and Morgan. Back in a quick couple of minutes.
Hey, folks, want to tell you about our friends at Titan Construction Group really quick. They're a Mid-Atlantic-based general contractor, specializes in retail, restaurant, and office construction. TCG strives to separate itself from other general contractors by adding value every step of the process. From project budgeting to estimation, value engineering to construction, they focus on those relationships and not the transaction. Titan builds partnerships one project at a time. Among their clients are Starbucks, Crumble Cookie, Blake Pizza, Home Goods, 15 plus years experience, based in Midlothian, Virginia, and contracted in Virginia, West Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. So get on their website, TitanCGinc.com. That's TitanCGinc.com. Get in touch with Brad if you're in need of a general contractor that focuses on going above and beyond for their clients. That's Titan Construction Group, a proud sponsor of the JC and Morgan podcast.
Listen up. This is for construction professionals, contractors, facility managers, or do-it-yourself homeowners. SitePro Rentals is ready to equip your upcoming project. We rent construction equipment for any size job. Boom and scissor lifts, telehandlers, skid steers, excavators, air compressors, generators, even small tools and equipment. SitePro has you covered. If you are ready for better equipment rental, call SitePro and rent from the local, friendly, easy to do business with equipment professionals. Call 972-RENT-NOW. That's 972-736-8669 to rent the newest equipment in the Atlanta market. Call 972-RENT-NOW or visit SiteProRentals.com.
We're passionate about making sure that the Nest and Wild mattress is the best it can be. Made well and made right. Right here in Tupelo, Mississippi. So how can we do all that? Work. Hard work. And that means something. The Nest and Wild mattress is a movement. It's a pride in where you come from and where you're going. So get comfortable. Because this movement is just beginning.
Here's JC and Morgan.
Welcome back. By the way, Tom, just a little production note. Being told you might need to go back to your phone mic. The beats are getting a little scratchy when your volume goes up.
Oh, they are.
When the passion comes through in that voice of yours, and we love
Hold
your
on
passion.
just one moment.
Yes. So while he's doing a wardrobe change, I do want to mention that JC and Morgan is presented in part by Nest and Wild, the most comfortable mattress on the market. It can be sent to your door in a matter of days. Check out nestandwild.com. You'll feel like you're sleeping on top of a cloud. I speak from experience on that one. Brandon Jameson, the founder and CEO out of Tupelo, just built a better mousetrap, or in this case, a better mattress. Now they've got the bed frames. Now they've got the most comfortable pillows on the market, all very well priced. Great local business out of, again, Tupelo, Mississippi. That's Nest and Wild, nestandwild.com, proud sponsor of JC and Morgan. Tom, do you know it's the, before we dive into the Phil 5, do you know it's the 1-year anniversary of a major event in college football? May the 15th, as we sit and record this very program live. 1 year ago, I'm sure that your family will celebrate this tonight.
Okay.
Clemson, take them to Applebee's, and you can all enjoy a sweet tea, have a toast that 1 year ago today, the Magnificent Seven of ACC schools was formed. That's right. Clemson, FSU, Miami, UNC, NC State, Virginia, and Virginia Tech basically kind of formed their own little alliance. They met over a number of times with lawyers examining grant of rights to determine just how unbreakable that ACC deal through 2036 is. 1 year later, Florida State and Clemson are still fighting like hell to get out. But I don't think the Magnificent Seven is really meeting together, over a chicken quesadilla platter at said Applebee's.
The question, though, Mike, is who can afford it?
That's exactly the question. $500 million doesn't grow on trees.
No. I mean, the exit fee is one thing. The cost to fight it in court is the problem.
Yeah.
I
mean, Florida State and Clemson, they're still fighting a good fight, as I understand it. I can't get too far into the weeds on that, because it just makes my head hurt. And I know one of the 5 that Phil has compiled will talk about what's going on with the NCAA case, and that makes my head hurt. But we'll delve into it. Phil Melinex, the birthday boy, you see him on screen now in the upper right-hand corner. Hello, Phil. Happy birthday to you,
Hello,
sir.
Phil.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you.
By the way,
Thank you.
Phil,
I appreciate that.
Go hardwired. It never fails.
Oh, so, and you know what? That's the best you've sounded all morning, Tom. That's all.
That is. Audio just improved.
It never fails. Good old chords, right?
That's
Good
right.
old chords.
Gotta love the chords. Do we have a little production on this, Phil?
I
Do you
got
wanna
it.
bring a
Let's
Mr.
get
Announcer
into
in there?
it. Yeah,
Gary
that's
David,
right.
the ultimate pipes man. Come on in, Gary.
It's time for the top topics in the sport. We bring the JC 5. Number 1.
All right, gentlemen, we're talking about big money, so let's jump right into the NCAA settlement. If you were thinking about breaking your grant of rights contracts in the ACC, which, of course, talk about failed alliances, they really just need to stop teaming up with anybody and go out on their own. But the NCAA is looking at a massive settlement offer, dollars-wise, to the point where some are even speculating it may end up resulting in bankruptcy for not only the NCAA itself, but for the conferences as well to get out from under this. But what are we making of all of this, gentlemen? Who's got the money?
Lugs, I'll let you start with this. I mean, the number I keep reading, and this means nothing. It is a pure estimate. But I do trust the reporting of people like Pete Thamel and others that do outstanding work with that. Ross Dellinger, we've had on the show. But $20 million per power program, is that the number that you're seeing? Does that even add up? I don't know how they arrived at that. Seems pretty arbitrary. But if every school had to pay $20 million a year on top of everything else that they pay,
right?
It's not like these are all bottomless pit. I keep telling people, do you remember the COVID year? If you thought that all these programs were bottomless pits of money, just remember, if people like Greg Sankey and others didn't step up and make sure we had a season, the programs were going to be in the red. Even like the most profitable programs were, if you took 1 year away of all the TV money and ticket money, and you were going to be running a deficit. Schools, even in the SEC, had to take out virtual loans. Like, okay, you get the money this year, but you'll pay. It'll be all taken off the top of your whatever portion that you're going to get years later. I don't know if this is sustainable. I really don't, but I'm very curious, obviously, how this is all going to turn out.
Well, on top of this, what's being potentially proposed is reducing your scholarships and reducing your walk-ons to the point where you wouldn't be investing as much money in your student athletes because you'd have a reduced roster. All right. Mm-hmm. Well, that's going to have a trickle-down effect, of course. Then how are you supposed to subsidize your non-revenue producing sports? Yeah. All right. And I saw a quote from the athletic director at Iowa State. He's right. They're scrapping all future plans or breaking ground, particularly on a brand new wrestling facility. They're scrapping it because they're like, where are we going to come up with the money? Right. We're now, instead of operating at a $100 million budget, we're now going to have to operate at an $80 million budget in order to provide that $20 million. And what I think is also interesting about this too, Phil, is I think they're talking about in all of this, once a settlement is created and all the parties agree, that part of this will prevent any further lawsuits in the future against the NCAA or conferences or what have you. And I don't know all the details about all of that, but basically saying, okay, you're immune from this going forward. You've paid your penance. All right. But then we'd have to be under a model. So basically they would be free from any further antitrust stuff.
Yeah. And I saw that. What I read this morning, Tom, on that was that it would prevent them from having to deal with this for a period of no less than 10 years. Right. So it could come back up, but and think about how quickly 10 years happens over the course of NCAA football, right? We blink our eyes. We can remember very vividly things that happened 10 years ago throughout this entire sport. So it's definitely there's going to have to be change made, and it's going to be force fed, I think, to the NCAA and the member conferences, but the numbers they're throwing around are just wild. Wild. Yeah, I also read where there was in the proposal they wouldn't even allow the member institutions to prorate it over 10 years and would have to pony up the money immediately in certain arrangements. Yeah,
what a racket!
Yeah, I know.
I mean, we're sitting here trying to act like. Pick a school. We're trying to act like Houston is the same as Georgia. Right. Like we're trying to act like Kansas State is the same as Ohio State. We're not comparing apples and apples here, man. I mean, this is how are any of these people supposed to survive this?
That's the thing. You and I have had the benefit of not just working games on major college campuses where we get the tour on Friday when we meet the coaches and we see the lab weight room and the practice facility, and it's just like Taj Mahal type stuff, and you're like, you can just smell the money. You and I also have worked games in the MAC, the Sun Belt, even less programs in a league like the ACC. Go to Winston-Salem and tour the Wake Forest. Like, they don't have that kind of money. It's not. Mm-hmm. So we make this power four now distinction, and we talk about them again like they're all Georgia, Ohio State. They're not. So many of those in the power four are not just swimming in cash. They really have to worry about a budget. They fire an associate sports information director to save $50,000 a year on the bottom line because they feel like they have to. So it's not apples to apples.
No. Not at all.
All right, number two.
Yeah, all right. So Tom brought up Houston, and we were talking about smaller conferences. So let's take a look at the good old Conference USA, or better yet, the leftovers of said Conference USA. Houston used to be in it. Cincinnati,
what
a lot
it
of
is.
larger schools. It just keeps getting raided by the big guys. How long do we think this model is going to sustain itself with the Group 5 conferences, or will they begin to coalesce into these big, large groups as well?
Well, we've already seen that happen.
Tom, for me, Conference US.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I'll just throw this one quote in when I think of Conference USA. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of teeming shore. Send these, the homeless tempest tossed to me. I mean, that's kind of... I did not write that, by the way, but I did have to go reference it. That is Conference USA. It's like, we don't fit anywhere else. Not everybody wants us, but damn it, we want to be in a league. Conference USA, which is the most appropriately named conference because they're literally all over the USA, scattered from sea to shining sea. But that is CUSA. It's still a Group 5 league, and they do have some programs that have done some damage there in recent years.
If somebody would have said to you 10 years ago that the Sun Belt was going to be a better top-to-bottom conference in Conference USA, you would have laughed at them.
Absolutely.
Yep. You would have laughed at them, right? Yeah. And then now, like, this is going to sound so bad, but unfortunately, it's heavily true. If South Dakota State went into Conference USA tomorrow, they would win the conference.
I believe it.
They might win the MAC. I did a playoff game there this year. Whoa. Like, they're a problem.
Yeah.
Like, North Dakota State is opening with Colorado. Colorado, you better buckle up. Like, those teams aren't screwing around, man. And so I don't know what you do with
and they know how to win.
Yes. So I don't know what, like, Conference USA, like, what happens? And this is why I think there's been such a serious conversation that's been brought up by many, Derek Dooley being one of them, that the group just go ahead and have a Group of 5 playoff system. You can still have your bowl structure, brings in revenue, have a Group of 5 playoff system, structure it like the FCS does. If you want, go to 24 teams. Who cares? Right? And trust me, people will watch. If you paid attention to the NHL and the NBA ratings and all this, that WNBA,
right,
I promise you would have huge eyeballs on this. Huge.
No question. No question. And a lucrative TV deal.
Yes.
Sign it.
And that's what keeps them. That's what would keep them all afloat.
We've talked about this for years. About JC and I are simpatico on this of being a pro Group 5 playoff. Now, I don't think they're ever going to pass on the automatic bid to the playoff that is the new 12 team / 14 team / someday will be 16 model, because the money is too big and the exposures. But you can have your cake and eat it too. You can do both. There's a way to do it. But yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, Liberty was a great story out of this league last year, and there'll be a great story again this year. But New Mexico State, seems like just yesterday, Cole Kublik and I were calling a Jacksonville State playoff game in the FCS. Well, now they're in Conference USA, and they went 9-4 and went 6-2 in the league last year. Western Kentucky, Middle Tennessee. If Middle Tennessee could just move their campus to Nashville, they already would have been in the bigger league, but they're in Murfreesboro. La Tech, Sam Houston, UTEP, FIU, and yes, Missouri State was now moving to CUSA. It's a fascinating league that it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And you're right. People forget, before they got raided by the American, Conference USA had UCF and USF and Temple and
Cincinnati.
Yeah. They were loaded. And then they made a bad TV deal. They decided that they were going to do games on like Facebook or something, and they set themselves up for disaster and never recovered. and now they are where they are. So,
George Kleofkoff level disaster.
George Kleofkoff level decision making. That's right. That's exactly.
That's the highest DEFCON.
You haven't heard that name. You haven't heard that name in a while, have you?
Oh, yeah. Well,
Wonder what bunker he's in.
He kicked everybody in the Kleofkoff on the way out. I mean, just completely sank that ship like it's never been sunk before. All right, number 3, sir.
That's right. 0 member institutions were founding members currently in the CUSA. Just
Oh,
as
my
a quick
goodness.
note.
Wow.
Number 3.
All right. The latest rumblings on Power 5 conference expansion have proposed that the Jayhawks of Kansas may be courting or being courted by the SEC. What do we think about that, gentlemen?
Okay. I have to throw in this disclaimer before we dive into this, Tom, because this is more juicy migration talk and people can't get enough of it. And it's the ultimate clickbait. And there was a guy named after a boat that was doing all this a few years ago. And he found the soft, vulnerable spot of every college football fan. And I think he was right on something, but he was wrong on everything else. And people, you're forced to believe it because it's like, do you believe in aliens? Well, I don't know, but I know my neighbor swears up and down. He's got video footage of an alien in his yard, drinking a tequila on a lawn chair. So I have to give it some credence. And there's been so much mobility and so much of this going on that we can't just ignore it as just, oh, that's just a silly rumor. So what do we make of it? I'll just tell you this. I have never been of the opinion but what I've heard from people I trust, nobody knows everything, including the decision makers for that matter. I don't think they know exactly the way this is all going to turn out. But I've been told it's very wrong to assume the SEC is just chomping at the bit for FSU and Clemson. That is a supposition that has been made incorrectly by a number of people who cover this sport and by a number of fans. And then you start hearing names like Virginia and North Carolina. You start hearing terms like contiguous, which clearly is something the SEC takes pride in. Kansas would be contiguous because it connects to Missouri. You and I have been out to Missouri to do games. When you go to Como, you have to understand, first off, it still feels a little bit different from the other SEC venues. Okay. You're in a different part of the world. And there's not a lot of SEC ties there.
Mm-hmm.
They despise that rivalry. Mizzou, Kansas is never going away.
Right.
And if you somehow put them in the same conference, that would make a lot of those folks happy. Mm-hmm. Kansas football has had a recent string of credibility.
Yep.
They're no longer the laughingstock of Division I, and basketball speaks for itself. And it's a good academic institution. Mm-hmm. So when you add all that up, I don't think it's a crazy, nutty, just complete throw something at the wall rumor. I don't know how legitimate it is, but it's worth paying attention to in my mind.
Well, and there's one thing you failed to mention: basketball.
What's that? No, I mentioned that.
You did?
I just said in passing, basketball speaks for itself. It's a major power.
To me,
and don't think for 1 second Greg Sankey does not want to start winning national championships in that sport the way he's won them in every other sport. Basketball means a lot to that conference. I know that for a fact. Believe me, I know it.
And I remember, when Missouri came into the league and everybody's like, Missouri, why would they go after Missouri? And my response was, they didn't go after Missouri. They went after the market.
Right.
They went after the St. Louis, Kansas City market, which is somewhat of what you're referencing there. If you have two rivalry schools like that, that's never going away. Lawrence is 35 minutes outside of Kansas City. What would have to happen, though, is there would have to be such a financial commitment to compete at a high level in football in terms of investing in facilities upgrades, technology, staffing, manpower, just to be considered middle of the pack in the league. Right? I mean, people talk about Vanderbilt Stadium. You ever been to Kansas Stadium?
Once, when Charlie Weiss was the coach.
Okay. All right. So
they
then
were not good.
You're not good. And
it was not a good experience.
No. And so I'll tell you one thing. They got a great football coach who's done an unbelievable job. So I think they're poised for future success. But so much of what would come in for them financially would have to go directly to football.
Mm-hmm.
It'd have to.
Yeah. And I think they would do that. I mean, look, now they've gotten a taste of it. Heck, game day was there.
I know.
Freaking game day was there. Once you give those fans a taste of the good life, now they're all in. The whole notion of, we can't be good at football and basketball, that's silly talk. Of course they could.
Yeah.
You know, they had the blip with Mangino, and then that kind of came to a crashing halt. But there's no reason Kansas can't be competitive.
Of course,
in college football.
Absolutely. There's no question. And let me tell you something. If Jalen Daniels hadn't gotten hurt the last 2 years, they might have been in double-digit wins.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. All right, announcer.
Number 4.
All right. Let's see. What do we got on tap here? I'm going to save the group of 5 question for the last one. But all right, week 0 and week 1 have some pretty intriguing matchups. There'll at least be some decent storylines attached to it. What games are we looking forward to there, gentlemen?
Go ahead, Lugs. Lead us off there. I mean, it's juicy, man. It's week 0 and week 1. They're not fooling around this year.
Well, and I didn't think they were fooling around last year either. You know, I thought it was, pretty good last year. I'm going to look here and just look at because I know we had a lot of announcements.
Well, let me start with Georgia Clemson. Okay, that's juicy. That's in Atlanta. And there's a lot of talk here in Atlanta about, okay, can we continue this kind of kickoff classic where teams are anxious to play in that? Nick Saban wanted to do it every year. Georgia does it. Clemson's done it. But some people are worried that the luster is wearing off on that and that they're going to struggle to maintain those great matchups. But they got one this year. You got LSU, Southern Cal, September 1. You got Notre Dame at A&M week 0. You got Miami at Florida week 0. You got Penn State at West Virginia week 0. You mentioned the Colorado North Dakota State game. You got, for that matter, South Dakota State at Oklahoma State's not bad.
No, that's going to be a good one.
There's some juicy stuff here.
Florida State at Georgia Tech,
right?
Week 0 in Ireland, right?
In Dublin, yeah. I mean, I don't think Georgia Tech stays with them, but I could be wrong.
Well, it depends. It depends on how good that Florida State remains, or if they'll remain a top level team at quarterback. Because I kind of feel like we know what DJ Uiagalelei is. Like he's proven it over and over again. And is that good enough? And I think it's a legitimate question to ask.
Well, he was better at Oregon State, right? I mean, we can safely say that.
He was better. Yes.
I mean, he was not good at all at Clemson. He clearly was not ready for the moment, whatever you want to call it. He would not be the first quarterback that started off rocky waters and then flourished and turned into a big time player. Is he that guy? I don't know. Yeah. But they did lose a ton. I mean, they lost their wide receiving core. They lost their back. They lost a lot.
Exactly.
Tight end. Defense, I mentioned Jared Verse. They lost their defensive tackle. They lost a lot. Yeah. He was a high pick. But I still think, I mean, Georgia Tech, look, that was a great coaching job last year on the flats, but I don't think they're to that level yet.
Given the schedule, the team that needs the win the most out of those big games is Florida.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
They have to beat Miami. Like that is imperative for them when you look at the rest of the way.
Yeah, I mean, you can just feel it, Lugs. You're sitting on a less than dormant volcano that is just about to. There's so much hot lava right now beneath the surface in Gainesville that the moment things start going wrong, and maybe they don't. Maybe they if they beat Miami. You look at that schedule, the back half is brutal. They're going to lose games in the back half. There's no question.
No doubt.
But the front half, everybody talks about, they'd be lucky to win. The front half there are winnable games there in the first 5 or 6. I mean, they just have to clearly play better. I think Graham Mertz is fine at quarterback, but you lose your top receiver, you lose your back in the portal to ETN to Georgia. So I don't know. I mean, but the angst. There's two SEC programs that right now the angst is at an all-time high. It's Gainesville and it's Fayetteville with Sam.
Yes.
Pittman.
Yeah. And listen, with Florida, people forget, or some people may not even realize it. They were 5-2 at one point last year.
Yep.
You're like, what? Florida was 5-2? No way.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were. But again, the back half of that season, they got to come up with a way of stealing a couple of those.
I think for a lot of Florida fans, it's not just the fact that they're losing; it's the way they're losing. Some sloppiness.
Yes.
Penalties. Silly penalties. Field. Yeah, right. Not enough guys on the field. Pre-snap penalties. It seems like every time you turn on a Florida game, false start, illegal motion. Just like that's why you brought in a new coach to clean a lot of that up. You can't just recruit talent. You also have to. And Billy's always been a buttoned up Nick Saban disciple guy. Like he doesn't cut corners, but for whatever reason, it just didn't show up last year for Florida. All right, number 5, sir.
Number 5.
All right, and on this, I will take your comments off air, but I do not. So we've got a fan of JC and Morgan, Group of 5, John, who comes in and drops little Group of 5 facts into the old inbox there every week. And Mike, why don't you tee up what is on John's mind
I will.
This week?
Yeah, this goes out to Group 5 John down in Tampa, listening to us each and every week. Happy birthday again, Phil. Great job on the Phil 5 this
Appreciate
week.
it.
So
yes.
And for those, everybody knows Lugs from TV fame. And if you listen on Sirius XM, does a great job on the Sunday show with Barrett Salee. But just to go back in time, again, to my initial point, Lugs, sometimes I have to remind myself there are 23-year-olds that listen to shows like this. They don't know you played quarterback at Georgia Tech. They don't know your father. They don't know your background. They don't know that you have small school, quote unquote, experience.
Yeah.
Right. So you have a spot in your heart for teams like this, and they might not know that you also, in addition to being on the premier games as a sideline analyst, you also do a lot of Sunbelt and MAC.
Yeah.
So last week, Group 5, John, gave us 4 teams to look for to try to get that spot in the playoff, right? Because we know that there's going to be one guarantee spot. Yeah. So he mentioned, and he gives a great breakdown on all these.
There better be one that I am high on. So
okay. Well, he's the 4 he gave last week were, in no particular order. Don't take this as a 1 through 4.
All right.
Memphis,
boom.
Tulane. Oh, okay.
Memphis.
You're a big Seth Hennigan guy.
Well, they got everybody back off of a 10-win team.
Yeah. They play at Florida State September 14th.
Oh, boy.
That's juicy. Little chance to shock the world, right?
Yeah. Mike Norvell's former team.
Ryan Silverfeld doing good work over there. I bet you if Ryan Silverfeld walked into a bar and spilled a beer on somebody who's a college football fan, he wouldn't know who Ryan Silverfield is. Like, excuse me, what the heck did you do that for? Hey, I'm Ryan Silverfield. You might know me. I coach Memphis. I'll spill as many beers on your head as I want to, and then I'll buy them on the way out. So, yes, he does have Memphis. He has Tulane under John Summerall. He has App State under Sean Clark. And he's got Boise State. Boise State, you don't disagree with any of those, right?
No, they're all poised to be in line. Absolutely.
All right, so he's got 4 more here.
All right.
One that's going to be near and dear to your heart. Let's start with San Diego State under
right.
Sean Lewis,
who was made to be the scapegoat at Colorado.
I know.
Yeah, he was like 70% of the reason they were even competitive.
Exactly. For the Dion fanboys, God bless you. But that move was a joke. It was an absolute joke. You find Sean Lewis was the guy that was scheming your way into a couple of early wins.
Dude, he did it at Kent State.
I had him at Kent State. No, he did a great job there.
I know.
He was one of the best young names in coaching. Anyway, it was his games, and now he's a head coach at San Diego State.
Yeah.
And so they're playing both of the Pac-2, or the Tupac, as we like to call it, They're playing. Thank you very much.
That's well done.
Yeah. Oregon State and Washington State. They also play Cal on the road, so they're not joking around with their non-Mountain West schedule. They do play at Boise State. They're home against UNLV. He's also got, speaking of UNLV, he's got UNLV led by Barry Odom.
Barry Odom's done a great job, but they lost their quarterback.
They lost Jaden Maivea, thank you.
Yeah.
They did pull in grad transfer Matt Sluka from Holy Cross. That's all I got on him. Not gonna work here anymore. Keys to get back to the Mountain West Championship game. They got home games against Fresno, Boise State, and San Diego State. Number 3, USF, go Bulls, led by Byram Brown, who threw for 32 and 26 touchdowns last year. Remember, they're the ones that went to the Boca Raton Bowl, the mean streets of Boca, as I like to call them. They blew out Syracuse 45-0.
Oh, yeah.
Smoked them.
Smoked them.
Much to the dismay of several spoiled young broadcasters looking to get an early leg up in the profession. Head coach is Alex Golish.
Yeah.
Who I believe is Russian, if I'm not mistaken. Going back to when I was doing a deep dive on him at Tennessee.
Yeah.
Big games.
Ukrainian, Russian,
Something, yeah. He's Baltic. Big game September 7th. First time I've ever said that on this show. Big game September 7th at Bama. Home game September 21st against Miami. Key games in the AAC, Memphis and at Tulane. And finally, Liberty. Yes, they got smoked to Oregon in the Fiesta, but Jamie Chadwell. I covered Jamie at Coastal, impressed me there.
Sure.
I saw him at the Spurrier banquet, the first year award banquet in Gainesville a few months ago. He's just loving life, man. People say, well, why didn't he take like a bigger job? First off, Liberty's got a lot of money. For those that don't know, a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
Not oil money, but they got a lot of money. So they can pay Power 4 money in some respects. I mean, they're not going to outbid Georgia and Kirby Smart, but they can pay a lot of money.
Yeah.
And it's a school that's definitely committed. And he's got his quarterback back, Caden Salter. Key games to repeat as Conference USA champs at App State and home versus Western Kentucky. What do you think of that list?
I like it. I mean, App State has to go to Clemson week 2, but they also went to Texas A&M 2 years ago and beat them.
That's right.
So you always got to expect a great game out of App State.
Mm-hmm.
So no, I like that list of teams. You know, who was it? I think it was Sonny Dykes at TCU. Speaking of Group of 5 stuff, and he made a quote. It was something like he mentioned a Group of 5 team. I can't remember who it was, and then he said, "And Alabama." He goes, "They're not the same, right? They might both be an FBS,
right?
They're not the same.
No,
And I always get a lot of pushback from people, and I don't want to say I'm hard on Group of 5 schools. I'm not hard on Group of 5 schools, but every time we see a 12-0 Group of 5 school, right, and you have all these people carrying their torches through town square about how can they not be in the college football playoff? How are they not in the top 4 and blah 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 blah? And I'm like, because if they played a Power 5 schedule every week, they wouldn't be 12-0, and we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Right.
And they said, well, you don't know that. I said, actually, I do know that. Well, what do you mean? Well, go look at Utah and TCU's record, their last 3 years at the Group of 5 level. One of them was 33-6. One of them was 36-3. Their first 2 years at the Power 5 level, sub 500.
Yeah.
There is an adjustment. There is a developmental talent gap that doesn't get fixed by waving a magic wand. Now, the transfer portal now makes it different than it was back when those two teams did that. But we're sitting here talking about, Group of 5 schools and trying to compare them when we're talking about college football playoff inclusion. And you're not, as we said before, you're not comparing apples and apples. And it's not just the teams you're playing. It's the venues and the environments.
Right.
I'm sorry, but when you got to go into Knoxville, that's not the same as going to Las Cruces.
Yeah.
When you've got to go into Ann Arbor, that's not the same as going to Fort Collins. Right? It's just so it's the teams and the road environments that can catch up with you, and then you don't have the depth overall as a roster to just push through a 13, 14, 15-week schedule against teams that are vastly superior to you in terms of depth and talent. That takes several years. I've had multiple conversations with Kyle Whittingham and Gary Patterson about this exact subject several years after they've established Power 5 success. And it's always the same answer. Players, talent, and development.
Mm-hmm.
It's just hard to do that with the group of 5 week in and week out if you were playing a Power 5 schedule.
And now they're all getting poached. I mean, if you can play a lick in Group 5, you're going to get poached. You're gone.
Gone.
And
those coaches now at the FCS and the Group of 5 level that have had to do the real hard work in recruiting and evaluating, meaning they don't have a crystal ball. They're not getting college-ready guys right out of the gate. They're having to develop, and they're having to project, and they're having to massage and try and say, you know what could this guy be if he was a redshirt sophomore?
Right.
Right. And then that guy becomes that. And he's gone. And at that level, you don't replace him with the same guy.
Yeah.
Like that happens to Alabama. The next guy coming in is the same guy.
No doubt. We got to take a break. Say, since you mentioned it, you haven't lived until you've spent 4 days and 3 nights on a work assignment in Las Cruces, New Mexico. That is one I will take to the grave. Wow, that is
better than El Paso.
Well, you're not near death and Juarez and getting decapitated. You're right. There is that. I've been to both.
Kidnapped and murdered. If you come within 300 yards of the border,
right? You're less likely to be in the trunk of a car and be decapitated for virtually
have your ears
no good
sent
reason.
To your family for a ransom.
Yeah, exactly. I actually had a crew that was like, after doing the game, like, let's go to across the border and have beers in Juarez. I said, are you effing kidding me? Do you read the news? No, dude. Sir. I'm not in. Not my in goodness. At all. True story. All right, we got to take a break. We'll be back. Do a little fiver dimer with our friend Lugs here. Final segment of JC and Morgan coming up.
Listen up. This is for construction professionals, contractors, facility managers, or do-it-yourself homeowners. Site Pro Rentals is ready to equip your upcoming project. We rent construction equipment for any size job. Boom and scissor lifts, telehandlers, skid steers, excavators, air compressors, generators, even small tools and equipment. Site Pro has you covered. If you are ready for better equipment rental, call Site Pro and rent from the local, friendly, easy to do business with equipment professionals. Call 972-RENT-NOW. That's 972-736-8669 to rent the newest equipment in the Atlanta market. Call 972-RENT-NOW or visit siteprorentals.com.
We're passionate about making sure that the Nest and Wild mattress is the best it can be. Made well and made right. Right here in Tupelo, Mississippi. So how can we do all that? Work. Hard work. And that means something. The Nest and Wild mattress is a movement. It's a pride in where you come from and where you're going. So get comfortable. Because this movement is just beginning.
Here's JC and Morgan.
All right, it is the final segment. He is Tom Luginbill of ESPN. I am Mike Morgan, our producer, celebrating a birthday today, Phil Mullinax, and we are wrapping things up. A segment, Phil Lugs demanded this. He said, I'm not coming on the show unless I can take part in Fiver, Dimer, or neither. And then I told him, based on some of his evaluations, I said, well, it proves one thing, Mr. Luginbill. It proves you college, high school football evaluator guys don't have enough education to admit when you're wrong. I don't feel
I
good.
bet hit a lot more than $3,000, Chief.
If you want them, you got to give me 10. For that, you get the head, the
tail,
tail, the whole damn thing. 1,100 men, Chief. Some made it out of the water. Some didn't make it out of the water. Yeah, there you go. That is the ultimate. We call that a Ben Franklin, Jaws. When it's on, you watch. You drop the remote, you watch. So when we pick these movies, it's again, the goal is not to like pick our top 3 movies. I just come across 3 on cable or Netflix or whatever, and I decide, okay, we'll throw these out there. So here are my 3: Gran Torino, Vision Quest, The Founder. Gran Torino for me.
That's my favorite Clint Eastwood movie of all time.
Really? So, okay, we're giving you a dimer on that. You've seen it 10 or more times.
Oh, easy.
And it is on cable a lot, so you've got the opportunity to watch it a lot.
Awesome.
It's a fantastic movie. It really is. And Clint makes almost nothing. It's like, you think he just turned like 97.
Dude, he writes them, he produces them. Did you know that he orchestrates the movie? The music, he composes the music for his movies?
I did not know that.
Yeah. The guy's unbelievable. He's unreal.
He makes the kind of movies that are not made anymore. Like,
I know.
Because these are not popcorn movies. These are, again, there's no animation. Nobody's wearing a cape. And there's not like, witchcraft. Like these are just stories.
Yeah.
These are just solid stories.
$1 Million Baby.
Absolutely.
The Mule.
The Mule was a great movie. Gran Torino is a great movie.
Yes.
Yeah. It's a dimer for me too. I saw it in the theater. Remember when people used to go to the movie theater?
Oh, I saw it in the theater. I still go to the theater all the time. That's my escape from football.
Well, it's my escape too. And generally, when I get off that plane for a work trip, my first thing would be to go to a movie theater and watch something. But there's just very few things that I want to see anymore.
Not a lot of good stuff.
It's not a lot of good stuff. So I'm left like, do I want to just roll the dice on a crappy 1-star movie?
Yeah. I've seen 2 good ones lately, though.
What you got?
I saw The Fall Guy. Very good. Very
okay,
funny.
I have not seen that.
And for those of us who grew up with Lee Majors and the television show,
it's
an offshoot of that. It's really good.
Okay.
Great chemistry between Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling. So it's a lot of fun. And then the job they've done with these Planet of the Apes movies is simply phenomenal.
Not my bag, but I've heard the same thing, that they're so well done.
You know how the Mission Impossible movies just keep getting better than the previous one? I don't know how they're doing it, but like we're on 7 or 8 now.
Right.
That's kind of what this is turning into. Like Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. And I didn't realize they're doing a 9-film arc. It started with Rise of the Planet of the Apes, and then it's going to end 8 films later, right?
Okay.
But they introduced a new twist and a new little wrinkle and a little bit of a cliffhanger in this one where you don't really know where they're taking it. But it was really good, man. Like they're good. They're well done movies. And the CGI is so good that you don't realize it's CGI. Because you got the motion capture people, actors that are doing it. Right. So anyway, I interrupted your.
No. That's good because I asked, like, what am I going to go see these days?
Yeah.
I stumbled upon, I thought, a good movie in the theater a couple months ago, Dumb Money, which I think is now
really good. Yeah.
A very good movie.
Very good.
Reminded me of The Big Short, which is also a great movie.
Big Short is one of the greatest movies ever.
Awesome. That's
Ryan Gosling
a timer for me.
Oh my God.
Great cast based on a true story. It's a lot to digest, but they made it digestible.
No doubt.
Which is a skill in itself. All right. So Gran Torino, a dimer for both. Vision Quest.
Loudon Swain.
Yes. Of all the great wrestling movies, not like, not Hulk Hogan type wrestling, actual wrestling. This is easily number 1. It's only a $5 for me because I can't find it very often. But
it's a $5 for me too.
Okay.
It's a 5 for me too. And I can remember being a little kid and thinking the gal that he was interested in was so hot. What was
Linda
her name?
Fiorentino.
Linda Fiorentino.
Yes,
That's
you will
right.
respect her name and you will respect her performance.
Yes, you will. And I'll give you another little nugget on her of a great movie that was out in the 80s with Anthony Edwards, aka Goose, called Gotcha.
Oh, I saw. Yes, she plays a German.
Yes, she plays like the spy chick.
Spy chick. Yeah,
Yes.
Short hair. She goes short hair in that one.
Yeah, short hair.
Wow, that's a throwback.
That's a throwback, huh?
I haven't seen that movie anywhere. Like, that's one you gotta fork over the $4.99 because it ain't coming on cable anytime soon.
No. No, but you're right about Vision Quest. Vision Quest is hard to find.
Oh, it's so damn good.
Yeah.
Like, it is. Again, I never wrestled in my life. I
Me neither.
had friends that did it, so I know what they would go through trying to cut weight and all that stuff. And that movie portrays it as well as anything. The whole drama with Shoot, just like the ultimate kind of badass wrestler of his day. And Loudon's like cutting 20 pounds to get in his weight class. And a good soundtrack, a good 80s soundtrack. So I'm giving it a 5. Would be a dimer.
All right, name the Madonna song.
Crazy for You.
Boom!
Come on.
Let's go,
What are you talking
kid.
to? Let's go.
Holy smokes.
That video. So that's when movies came out.
Yeah.
And the video
Had
would help
clips of the
promote
movie.
the movie.
Yeah.
Because the Madonna video, much like all the Prince videos of their time, it would intersect her like singing on a stage and then clips of the movie of like Loudon Swain jumping rope and getting ready to get to 168. That's what you did back in the 80s to help promote a movie.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Absolutely. Oh, no,
So
I'm all
good.
in on Crazy for You. Come on now.
Yeah, let's go.
My last one, and then we can get to yours real quick, The Founder with Michael Keaton.
One of the best films that came out that year.
Easily.
And nobody knew it. It wasn't marketed. It wasn't heavily promoted.
No.
And if he's as ruthless of a bad guy as he's portrayed in that movie in real life, because when I was growing up, he owned the San Diego Padres.
That's right. The colors of the Padres, for those that don't know, the wife came up with this idea, ketchup and mustard.
Yep.
From the burgers, she wanted those colors, and they came up with the Padre logo.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that movie was so good. And what an operation those McDonald's brothers had.
They
like
were
the automation
right
of like the burgers on the Lazy Susan, and they go over and they get a squirt of mustard and go over and get a squirt, and like they're just handing them out like boom, boom, boom. And those guys, how far ahead of their time were they?
Way ahead of their time. And the story, and I didn't know this, the Michael Keaton character who called himself the founder of McDonald's, he's not the guy that invented it. It was the McDonald brothers. He basically got
San
them
Bernardino.
got him to take him on as kind of a sales guy. And before you know it, he basically took the business right from underneath him. It's the ultimate, just like shark in the water.
Yes.
But it's so accurate. If you read up on him, and I just forgot his name in real life,
Ray Kroc.
Thank you, Ray Kroc.
Yeah.
If you read up on his story, like that is an accurate portrayal.
Yeah.
He was an a-hole.
Ruthless. Yeah.
He was unethical, but he was a great businessman.
Well, you know what's interesting in that movie and how they portray how it really exploded? It's a great, great scene. And Ben Novak, the actor from The Office, actually plays his attorney.
Yes.
And he's trying to explain to him that you don't want to be in the franchise business.
Right.
You want to be in the real estate business.
That's right.
And when he realized that the business move was to lease the land, so you always owned the land that whoever the franchisee had their thing on, the money's just going to come flowing in. And that's how it all exploded.
You own it from the floor to the door. I own everything else.
That's right.
That's the line. That is the line. That you own it from the floor to the door. I own the building that it's in. And that's how he took it over. It's a dimer. It's so well done. Michael Keaton's always been one of my favorite actors.
So good.
Always been one of my favorites. He is outstanding in the movie. The movie is very well done. It reminds you of the ingenuity of people that helped build this country, no matter how much you hear the opposite. Like somebody had to invent all these things that people enjoy.
Yeah.
Somebody had to come up with these ideas. Someone had to risk everything they had and work their rear ends off to make it happen. In this case, it's both. It's the McDonald brothers who were so ahead of their time, as you mentioned.
Mhm.
And then it's a guy who knew the ruthless part of the business and franchising, which they never wanted to do. They just wanted to be a mom and pop.
Exactly.
He wanted to take over the world, and he essentially did. And McDonald's is, of course, still around today. All right, that's my list.
So good.
What do you got here before we sign off?
I've got 3. I've got Source Code, Breakdown, and Batman Begins. Now, you told me when we were discussing.
Oh no, we lost Luke's in the middle of
right?
There we go.
It's got to be stuff that you kind of come across, right? That's what you explained it as, right?
Yeah. Can't just be like, these are my favorite movies. These are potential movies that you come across, and then we determine whether or not they're fivers or dimers or neithers for us.
Not hearing you.
Oh, we lost you. You blacked out there for a second, bud.
Hello.
Yeah.
Oh no. We've
Try
lost
talking to me.
I'm
I got
talking
no
to
audio.
you. You got no audio. Yeah, you're gone.
You. I see you.
All right.
No audio.
We'll just say goodbye on that note. We'll wave goodbye on that
How
note.
am I supposed to hear what you're saying?
You can't. Just this
whole
is
thing we're doing right here is hilarious.
Well, it is. Yeah, this is the perfect turned in. It went from a serious subject.
I guess I'll just talk to you next time.
Yes.
Check out Source Code.
Okay.
2011, Jake Gyllenhaal.
Okay.
Breakdown, 1997, Kurt Russell.
Never even. Oh no, I have seen that. Okay.
Really good.
Yeah.
And then everybody focuses on the greatness of The Dark Knight. They fail to remember how actually good Batman Begins is, considering it's a setup movie.
Okay.
And what you had explained to me is these got to be things that you just came upon. They don't have to be your favorite movie, this and that. So where I came up with these 3 is flying on American Airlines, because every month they change like their free entertainment, their movies, and so I've run across a couple of these. And then HBO Max, for some reason, started running Source Code, which is fantastic.
Never saw that.
Michelle Monaghan, Jake Gyllenhaal, Vera Farmiga. And then on the airplane, all of the Batman and DC movies have been running. So I was like, I'm going to watch Batman Begins again. So this is
solid
the
list.
Television that we're doing right here.
Yes, but you nailed it.
I'm watching you.
I'm giving you 2 thumbs up.
I'm looking at your pretty face and your mouth's moving. I have no friggin' idea what you're saying. So I'm going to leave now. And it's been a great 1 hour and 33 minutes.
Yes.
And I want to come back and do it again.
We will.
As soon as I can. And I will have a fresh set of free movies.
I like it. Luke, you're the best. Love you, man. I know you can't hear me, but trust me, I'm giving you a compliment. Awesome stuff. Our thanks again to Luke for joining us today. We'll be back next week with JC. Verne Lundquist next week. Verne does not do many interviews. I've been fortunate to get to know Verne a little bit over the years, and he agreed to do it. And we are excited as heck to have him on. That'll be next week on JC and Morgan. I think that we're doing that Tuesday. Yeah, Tuesday morning, back at our normal day and time around 9:30. For the birthday boy, Phil Molinax, for Tom Luginbill joining us, special co-host Mike Morgan saying so long. We'll see you next week on JC and Morgan.